So what Eureka just said really resonates with me, and it's something I'm going to be talking about as well, which is using science to solve some of the grand challenges we currently face at the moment. And so to bring a human element to this, I'm going to start very young. When I was about 4 or 5, I knew exactly what I was going to be. I grew up in a Christian family and I watched a lot of Rocky with my older brother, and so I figured out I was going to be a church minister and a professional boxer. And then later in life I realised that the two weren't very compatible. But I took up an interest in science, and that had a lot to do with my father, who was an eminent microbiologist, and after I finished a Bachelor of Science, I worked for him for a couple of years at CSIRO, worked on Alzheimer's disease, malaria, new drugs to treat fungal infections, and then my life underwent a sudden twist. So I was diagnosed with cancer, Hodgkin's lymphoma, also known as the Delta Goodrum disease, and I had a tumour in my chest about the size of a cantaloupe around my heart and major arteries. And the tumour had spread to my lungs, my right atrium, my heart had collapsed. I was pretty sick, and they said I would have been dead within a month if I hadn't have came into the hospital when I did. So, cut a long story short, after 6 months of chemotherapy, a month of daily radiotherapy, a couple of major operations, I was back on track, but I was starting to view life a little bit differently. And it occurred to me that nobody lies on their deathbed thinking about their career and reminiscing on that sort of thing. They're more thinking about life and love and family and the really important stuff. And that got me thinking more about, if I'm going to spend the next 40 years of my life doing something, I wanted to pick something really fun, something that I was really passionate about. And so I chose marine science. And so I love the beach, I love surfing, I love fishing, and I thought, well, I'll be a marine biologist. And so, next slide, please. And so, being a marine biologist is about solving problems. I asked my daughter the other night, she said she wanted to be like me, and I said, well, what do I do? And she said, you fix things. And I think she's spot on, because the role that I play and the role that anybody who's working in environmental science plays is that we're trying to fix problems that we've created. But as good as we are at creating problems, we're also really good at fixing problems. And so we have, if we care enough, can we just go back one? We have solutions to this problem on the left here, which is the predicted collapse of the world's fisheries by 2050. We're still heading in that direction. That's what's predicted by the scientists. But we have solutions to stopping that from happening if we really care. We have things we can do with the world's offshore petroleum structures that are now reaching the end of their production life. We have ways of recycling if we really care. Those are just a couple of examples that I've researched over my last couple of years. And what I'm working on now, actually, next slide. So this is an example I like to think of when I'm dealing with really big problems that just don't seem to have logical solutions. So throughout the world's river systems we put dams in. And what we realised was that fish couldn't swim upstream to reproduce, and that's really important. If they can't do that, you don't have those fish. You see the salmon in those nature videos swimming up over these upstream, and the bears are swiping at them, and so this is something they do. It's a really important part of their biology. And so what we discovered was that you could put in fish ladders, a ladder that a fish can climb to get up and over a 100-foot high dam wall. And so this is an example I like to think of when we're solving some of the problems that we've created. The problem I'm working on now is climate change. It's quite a big problem, but I'm really fortunate that in marine science, we have probably what I think is one of the most powerful weapons to tackling climate change using nature. So, along our coastline, at the interface between land and sea, we have several key habitats. And I'm going to talk about the seagrasses. And together with the salt marshes and mangroves, they capture and store about 70% of the carbon in the marine realm. That's about 30 times more. They're 30 times more powerful at capturing carbon than terrestrial forests. And when they store the carbon, they store it for thousands of years. Terrestrial forests often only do it for a decade or so. And in Australia, we are in a great position to capitalise on these systems as carbon sinks. We have a seagrass area around the size of Victoria. The problem that we're facing, though, is that our seagrasses are disappearing at a rapid rate. We've lost about half the world's seagrasses. we refer to these as the coal mine canaries of coastal ecosystems. They're the first to disappear when something is going wrong. And it's not just a carbon sink we're losing. We're losing important fisheries habitat. The seagrasses support around 50% of the world's fisheries. That's valuable nutrition for about 3.5 billion people. They stabilise our shoreline, they prevent coastal erosion, they're important habitat for dugongs, turtles and so forth. So that's what I'm tackling at the moment. Just go to the next slide, please. I'm in a competition at the moment called the Eureka Prizes. This has been a chance for me to promote the importance of seagrasses, to promote awareness of their need for conservation. If you want to follow some of the blogs we're doing at the moment about seagrasses, and this here is a photo of some artificial seagrass that we were working on. There's some fun stories where we had to hand tie 250 kilometres of green Christmas ribbon to steel mesh to make artificial seagrass to work with on very large scales. We've had a lot of fun with this project, and you can find out more on our little Facebook page. And if you feel inspired at all by the seagrass work, please get on and vote. I'm up against 5 other excellent candidates as well, so you might end up voting for them, but that's all good. But you'll see some video anyway about the seagrass research, and it goes into a little bit more detail than I've just done here, so thank you.